This is a little video where I'm going to talk about how I made the tables that I put in the technical report task one, part one. So if you reviewed my completed technical report for task one, part one, you would have noticed that I basically took my analysis plan and then thoughtfully converted it to past tense. So not only did I convert it to past tense, well, I basically was using it as my sort of my majority of what I was going to write about, right? Because it's what I was instructed to do by the analysis plan. So this is what I need to report on. So I kind of turned it around, and what I did is I wrote in each section basically a confirmation of what was done and then a summary of what was found. So for example, errors, a total of 7 errors were found in the data, representing 3.5% of the data records. And then it says, 5 of these were corrected and 2 were deleted. So you just kind of summarize it really quick in a sentence or two. And then it's always good to have a table. And I wanted to put together this Excel video to show you how I was able to create this table in Excel and then bring it into Word. That in some ways that made the whole process quicker and easier. So I'm just going to slide this over and grab the Excel work that we did on cleaning up the data set. We had these, you probably remember this tables where we were identifying errors, missing data, cleaning those, making decisions on what we were going to do, and then talking about, are there any outliers and what was the decision with those. So the way I look at it, it's 3 different groups of information, if you will. So the first thing I wanted to do was talk about the errors. So what I did is I created a new blank sheet. And so this is my completed sheet over here. I called it for the tech report. So I just want to go through how I made this sheet. And I'm not going to show you all 3 tables. I was just going to show you one of them. But let me start with this error one. So what I did is I said, okay, well, the information that I need is contained in this upper part of the table. And I don't know if it's pointing to certain references or what's going on. So I don't want to mess around with any of the numbers. So I select the part of the table that I want, and I'm going to copy it. So I'm doing Command C or Control C, or you can right click and choose copy. Now I'm going to go to my new sheet where I want to place this table. I'm going to leave a few empty rows above because I always want to fully document what's in my Excel sheets. So I don't want to just stick it in here without anybody understanding what I was doing. So I come down to the paste values. Now, if you're on a Mac, I believe you have to go to paste special, which also is on a Microsoft Windows version. But you go down to paste special and you're going to come over to paste values. And what's nice about the paste special, it also has paste values and number formatting, or paste values and source formatting. So I'm going to go to paste values and source formatting because that's going to basically give me everything that I wanted without changing any of the numbers. Now the numbers are no longer formulas in Excel. Now, this is not something I would like you to have in your Excel file. You want to know the Excel formulas as was in the data cleaning, right? So when we were in here, we actually had formulas. But now we are going to create a table and we don't want formulas. We want to actually have just the numbers in there. Okay, so at the top of the tech report, I wrote for the following tables are formatted for the technical report from the data cleaning worksheet. I'm just going to copy that. You want just something like that at the top of your work so it's clear what is happening in this Excel sheet. All right. The next thing I wanted to show you was, this is the beginning of the table. It is perfectly fine for Excel for the work we were doing in Excel. For a formal document like a technical report, we actually want to, in a sense, clean it up. So in order to do that, the first thing that we want to do is down here where we have the number and the percent, and then deleted. So as I put this into, as I started thinking about putting this into my technical report, so to put this into my technical report, I'm going to get rid of all the variables that were clean because I don't need those in there. So I'm just going to delete those. So I can select, right click and choose delete. And this is where the green highlighting sort of makes things a little quicker. So over here, I have a big chunk. I can select these 4 together and delete. And then I have the last bit here. I do want to keep my totals in here. Okay. Okay. So now that I've done this, I can go through and begin to make it look a little bit more like a table that I'd want to put in a technical report. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to convert the angled formatting back. So I'm going to toggle that off. That toggles on or off. So now I'm going to look through it and just make these columns a little bit bigger, just make it a little easier to see. And then the next thing I'm going to do is come down here under notes. Instead of notes, I think I'm going to convert this to decision, just to be a little more clear in the technical report of what that man was going to male, female was going to female, what exactly we were going to do. And then this too much, I think is a little weird to read it. So I'm going to put quotes around it. Again, no big deal here. It's just a little bit of cleaning up or making things just a little bit easier to read. Now I get down here to the number and percent. So I'm going to add right below that. I'm going to select that row by clicking over on the margin, right clicking and hitting insert. And I'm going to say the number parentheses percent. This is going to say the number and percent. And I want to be clear that this is the number and percent of records that are impacted. So the number of rows, if you will. And notice the formatting is messed up here. So let me make that a little wider so it will fit. Then I have the number deleted. And I realize I actually need a little more information here. So I'm going to insert 2 more rows into this. I could just put it here and I can just say this is also the percent. And then the number and percent deleted. So now I need to just go in and make sure that I convert these percentages correctly. So this one is just going to equal the 1 divided by, and I'm going to go back over to the data cleaning and click on that 200 up there. Give me that value, change that to a absolute reference, and then format this as a percentage. Okay. Now I can copy that over here. Right. So we have just add a little more information than we originally did. Right now, what I want to show you is how to create the number and percent of records that takes up less space and is a little more traditionally the way you represent a number in a technical report. So we will say this is going to equal. So the first thing we want to say is concat. We want to put together the number. So I'm going to point up here to the 2, comma, and I'm going to give the parentheses. I'm going to put in an open parentheses. Then I'm going to click on the percentage. Then I'm going to close this parentheses. And then I'm going to close this whole thing. So I see that I get 2.01, 201. And I'm like, wow, that's not really how I wanted that to look at all. So now this is where we start kind of tweaking it. I'm coming up to the formula bar, and in front of the parentheses, I'm going to add a space. So if I put that and I hit enter, now we see this is looking a little better. Let me go ahead and center this. All right, but that 0.1, I actually want it to be a percent. Okay, so now I have to go in and I have to fix that B7. So the way I can do that is I can say, okay, well, I will actually want this number to be a percent. So I'm gonna multiply it by 100. Afterwards, I'm gonna give it a percent symbol. Okay, so we do that, we get that it's 1%. But I think, let me go back over here. I think we want to add more decimals here, just to have a little more granularity. So what I really want that is to say 1.0. So up in here, so the first thing you might think of is, well, maybe I want to round this result 100 times that to 1 decimal. So if you do that, you'll see that it doesn't really help because round will drop any trailing zeros. So even though you round it to 1 decimal, because it's exactly 1.0, it just shows you it as round. So the other function that you can use in a situation like this is fixed. So fixed is the same as round, but it will definitely add that 0 there. So now that I said fixed, I get that this is the 2 and the 1.0% the way I want it. And now that that formula works, I can just drag this little green box at the bottom over, and I can get my data formatted the way I want. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing to these records here. Oops. So I'm going to copy and paste that and paste that. Okay. So we have our data in our table the way we want it. Now I'm going to copy this whole set of data here, all the values in these cells. I'm going to select them all, I'm going to copy them, and then just right below it, I'm going to put in just the values. So if you're in a Mac, it would be paste special, and then just the values. All right. Now what I want to show you is that now that I have this data down here, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go into the home ribbon, kind of in the middle under styles. I'm going to choose format as a table. And you have many different formats you can choose from. I'm going to go down to this one because I think it kind of matches what I did for the variable definitions. So I'm going to do this blue style, table style medium 9. Again, you can choose a different one. So then it's going to say, does your table, where is your table? So I've already selected it, and then I'm going to click on that. My table does have headers. So now you'll see that I have this information in a table format. A lot of the formatting, though, still needs to be added in. So for example, I'm going to select all this data and go to the home ribbon and hit Wrap Text. I'm going to go through the left-hand side, and I'm going to make this bold, and I'm going to just center it in the box vertically, and I think I'm going to try right just centering, right justifying it. Then I'm also going to add a right border on this. Okay. So the rest of the data, and then I start playing around with it a little bit just to make it look how I want. Now, one of the things is I purposely created the number percent of records so I could get rid of these 2 rows. So I'm going to delete those, and I'm going to delete the next one, the next 2 down. I just realized we forgot to get a total here, didn't we? So we should have had this total in here. And the percentage that it represents. So we're going to say this is going to equal, actually we can do the same. We can just copy this formula over. And then we're going to copy this formula over to put it in the format we want. And this last little bit is this is the number that we're going to copy down below as a value. So I just added that in real quick. Okay, So now you can start making it look like how you want it to look for when you put it into Word. So I'm going to pause the video and, well, I'm going to start just doing a few things. Remind myself of the things I did. Okay, so notice some of the things I thought would look better is centering everything. So, and making some of the heights of the columns a little bit bigger. So let's start out by doing centering everything in here. So I'm going to center, and then I'm going to select the bottom two rows, and make those just a little bit bigger. I think this one looks really crowded to me, so I'm going to make 17 a little wider. Let's go ahead and put all of this centered vertically as well as horizontally. And it looks as well like this birthday might need to come over. Actually, I want the labels at the top to also be centered. Okay, so again, you can spend a lot of time, really focusing on what you want here. At this point though, when you have it pretty close to how you'd want it to look, this is where you kind of then go in reverse and kind of start shrinking down things a little bit horizontally, because if you can, because this is where in Word you may be running into margin error issues. So, all right, so I clicked on those things. All right, so now that I have it pretty much I want, let me open up the table. So I wrote this part on the top, and then I said the table below summarizes the errors that are corrected in this data. So I'm just going to hit enter a few times just to give myself a little space here. I'm going to basically, the table's already in there, but I want to show you how I did it. So I went in and I selected this table now that I've created it, and I just come over here to Word and I paste it in. So now I pasted this table in, and I'm like, wow, that really isn't working for me. So see how this control is on top of that white box I want? I'm going to hit escape and then click on that box table again. I can grab this box. If you don't get the little white box for reshaping, you can also just right click on that little, sorry, there's a little box with 4 headed crossing arrows. You can right click on that, that selects the table, and come down to table properties. And then in table properties, on the table size, the preferred width, you can go ahead and set that up. So since I know it's an 8.5 by 11, I'm going to go down to 7 inches on this table just to see where that starts me. Okay, so it didn't do very much. It may have a limit of how small it will let you take it, unless you start messing around with it a little bit more. So I'm going to get rid of this column 1. I don't want that to be there. I'm going to make the spending 2021 is messed up. So I'm going to right click, double click on that space, and it's going to make each of the widths of the columns this what it needs to be. All right, so then I kind of go through and I'm like, okay, it's looking all right. Maybe I can make this a little smaller. Looks like I can maybe make so sometimes when you get that parallel lines, vertical parallel lines with the arrows, that implies you are at the end of a column, and that's how you resize it. So if you double click on it, it selects it, and then you can resize your table. Okay, and resize within the table. So I'm going to look for the parallel, and let's say I want to make this one just a little smaller or bigger. I can double click it, and now I've selected it. You'll see the dashed line, and it allows me to modify the size of that column to the left. All right, so now that I think I have this close to maybe how I want it, I'm going to select the whole table, and I'm going to center it on my page. All right. Now, down below, I had decided also to go ahead and give it borders. So that's all, that's something you can choose to do. Right now, it has sort of white line borders, if you will, and that's fine. So that's how I did that one. And that's basically this procedure to go through for the other ones. If I wanted to do the borders, I can do them either in Excel or I can do them here in Word. So again, I can go up here, and in this one we have to go over, I believe it's table design to borders, come down to all borders. So things might be in a slightly different location than they are for the Excel. Okay, and my table, actually I selected a table that's a little bit different. Well, I could have maybe over here chosen a table that was a little bit closer to what we had. Oh, it's the medium style 2 that what matches the variable definition file. Okay, well, if I wanted to be a perfectionist, I'd go in and fix that. All right. The next thing I want to show you is how I added the appendices. So we scroll down to the bottom. We stated here that we're going to add tabular outputs documenting what records were altered and or deleted. So we have that all set up for us under our, I called it data edits. Maybe you called it something else, but in my data edits worksheet in Excel is where I was documenting exactly what I was going to do to change any of the records. So this needs to be brought into our technical report. So in order to do that, I'm going to come out here and I want to show you how I did that. So let me go back up here, and I'm going to just give this a little bit of space, bring in this Excel. So first thing to do is we want to add a page break. So we're going to add the page break by going up here to insert, and on the very first grouping is pages. And if you click on the down arrow, or if you have a big enough spread on your Word, you'll be able to see it. But if you want to click page break. So now we've added another page in here. And on this one, you can just start typing. So generally we're gonna, you have to choose a format for how you want to label your appendices. I'm going to go with alphabetical letters. So you can go with numerical, like Appendix 1. So let's go in here and say Appendix A. Listing of data changes. I might have called it something else below. I didn't call it anything. Okay. Basically, I said the following listing of records shows. Let's copy that up here. The following listing of records shows that values were changed in yellow highlighting, or the records were deleted, with the yellow highlighting indicating the values that resulted in the decision to delete those records. Okay, then I have a comment here, which was that it's generally acceptable to have the formatting in this listing not be perfect, as the objective is to have the full documentation in an easy to read, easy to find and read location as possible. Okay, so that is a comment I added after the fact, after I pulled in the data. I wanted to just swing back up here. I want to make sure some of your tables are really not easy to read, especially the variable definition, variable names. So you really want to make these tables easy to read and look professional. You don't want to have things cut off. So go through and make sure they're good. So again, like if you're cutting off like spending, one of the spending functions, go until you see that parallel vertical lines, double click it, find it. Then you can make that column bigger or smaller, whatever, to end up making it readable and not breaking words off mid, right in the middle of a word. So coming back down to the appendix, we want to bring in these records. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select all of this data. And it looks like it's going to be down to here. And I don't want to put anything extra. So I'm going to copy that, coming over here to my Word document. I'm going to paste it in here. Okay. Now it's going to spill over. So now that I have this, let me just bring this more to the middle. I'm going to minimize this so you guys can focus on what I'm doing. It's spilled over because the table is way too big to fit in here. All right, so what would help is if we had this the pages for the appendix in landscape mode as opposed to portrait. So in order to do that, I want to select this section. So I'm going to select, I'm going to just highlight a little bit at the front and then scroll down to the end of this problem area, which is here. And then I'm just going to shift and click. So I've selected this whole area. Okay, notice there's some additional little pages in between that and any other work that's in my technical report. So now I've selected this area and I'm going to come up to layout, and in layout, find the group that has the orientation as the page setup, but don't click orientation. You want to come over and click on this little pop out button on the bottom right corner. And in here, we're going to choose landscape, and we're going to apply to the selected sections. Okay, and actually I'm going to say selected text. So once you have chosen the selected text, then we're going to hit OK. And you notice that what happened is the pages above this area are portrait orientation, whereas these are in landscape. And that's going to help a lot with getting this table in the right, to fit on a page. I'm going to select data again here. And I'm going to, I did that because I wasn't seeing this little box to select the table, but you can select the table either way. If you have that little box, then you can click on it and select the table. I'm going to come up here and I want to come up here to the table layout, and I'm going to go with my width, which is in properties over here. And if you think about this width, a standard page is 8.5 by 11 inches, and now we flipped it sideways. We really have a total width of the paper of 11 inches. And if we want to put an inch margin on each side, this would be 9 inches. And we are going to align it in the center, and we don't want any text wrapping. So we'll say OK here. Okay. Now, as you look through this, you're like, wow, that looks so bad. That's really hard to read. One of the things that we can do too is try to find that table button again, somewhere over here. Where is the little table button? Sometimes it disappears on you. Okay, so let me just do this the other way, where we select this data here. The not so fun way to do this. Okay, so let's come up here. And I'm going to go to the home, and I'm going to, in the font grouping, find this little A that has a down, like superscript, like a down arrow as an exponent. I'm going to click on that, and that's going to be shrinking down my fonts in this selected text. Okay. Now, I'm going to just play around with it just a little bit. For these, I'm going to try to merge these cells. That's going to help that a little bit. Sometimes you just have to shrink down your font even further. Okay, and like I said, you could be here a long time playing around with it, but that's why I put it in this comment. It's acceptable to have the formatting and the system not be perfect. Whereas up in the tables that are in the body of the text, we would want these to be closer to perfect. We want to be able to actually be able to read them easily. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is the analysis plan for tonight. And for that, we are going to start looking at the part 2 of the analysis plan. So let's go to part 2, analysis plan. And we're going to be putting together the original work. So here I have the beginning of it, and all I did was take the task 1, part 1, and copy it over. And so let's go look at the template also of what we need. So here I am in Brightspace, and I'm going to get the template of what we need for the rest of this analysis plan. So I'm going to go over here to content, and I'm going to come down to the analytics company, come down to this data and templates. And I have the analysis plan template for task 1. And so let's go ahead and open that. And we're going to compare this to what we want to do in our current analysis plan and where we're at. Okay, so for our current analysis plan, let's go over to the, I think we want to go to part 1 and look at that analysis plan in the final corrected one. And right now I'm just opening it in Google Docs because I'm just want to see what is that needs to go in here compared to the where we're at. So this is, I wanted to show you how I got to this part 2. So all I did was open, look at this and compare that to what was in here. And then I see for part 2, I have to state if any new variables will be created and how. And then it just reminds me to make sure I touch on the categorical ones as well as any numerical ones. And then enumerate and define any subsets that will be used. Okay, so over here, what I did is I made a copy. So don't forget, you can make a copy, you go to file and you can make a copy, or you're gonna make a copy. And when you go to make a copy, it'll ask you here what to name it. So you can call it, if you go to the very beginning of this using the home button, you can see that so it's going to be task 1, part 2, class project analysis plan. I'm going to take off that little space in the end. And I'm just going to say, it's probably not going to let me rename it because I already have one like this. So I'm just going to put my initial, actually the way I want you guys to do it is put your name at the front. So, okay. And here is the folder. I don't want it in the final corrected work. So I click on here and I use these back arrows. And I'm going to go all the way back to part 2 because that's where we're at now. And I'm going to go to the analysis plan. And if you have a folder that has your original work for analysis plan for part 2, that's where you'd want to put it. So I'm going to select it here. I'm going to say make a copy. And I can, of course, share it with the same people. And that's how I began working on this one right here. And then I just went through and came down here. And this part here, the third thing is all the way through the outliers, which is the end of part 1. Now I'm coming down here and I need to start the next section. So for the next section, I'm going to tap this over and say the following variables will be added to the data, to the clean data, right? And we'll put a colon. And I believe that's all I did. Yes, okay. So at this point, what I want to do is put in what are going to be my new variables. And I recommend you do this in Excel and then import it here as a table. Again, we're going to need to do it in Excel anyway, and it's a little easier to build that in Excel. So I'm going to jump over to Excel, and I'm going to pick up from where we left off with the building the tables for the technical report. So let's go over here to this clean data. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a copy of this clean data, and this is where we're going to be adding the variables. So let me just make a copy. So remember, we're going to right click on the tab name, move or copy, create a copy, move to the end, and I'll say OK. And now I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to call this additional variable data, or you can call it data with additional variables or whatever. So this is where we're going to start building them. And the reason for that is we want to make sure that what we add in here, we still have that clean data we can come back to if we needed to. Okay. All right. So we're going to go back to the variable definitions. And I don't know why I think mine are called variables complete. I'm just going to rename that all variables. All right. So this is the table that we worked on for your very first assignment, where you put in what was in the data already. Now we're going to add in these additional variables. So we went over some of these already. So the first thing I want to do is look at the information I gave you guys for task 1. So that, if you recall, is in the business and analysis consulting company. And then we have client project task 1. So I'm trying to give you guys guidance on each one of these steps as we go through them. So we are now in part 2. So let's click on part 2. And here's the client project analysis plan. So let's click on that. And here it tells us that we want to go and get our first analysis plan and make a copy and rename it. Okay, we just did that. We're going to use the notes below. Okay, so there's some notes below that are going to give us a little bit of guidance. We also want to use the class notes and e-text to complete the analysis plan through the end of task 1, part 2. And then we're going to make sure to save it with our last name, first initial. And here's where I suggest that you add the rows in the Excel file, creating additional variables and then copying that in. So that's pretty much what we need to do for the additional variables. So let's go in and see what the notes below have to say. So we'll open up this additional instruction here. And I'm going to close this template because we're not using that anymore. Well, maybe we will get back to it, but for right now, we're going to click on here. All right. All right, as we read through this, we're down here on part 2, and we're talking about transforming the data. All right, so we need to put these additional variables in our data set, and we need to add them in the Excel file and fill out the table of information on them. So the first one is it says transforming data. We're going to create some new variables. So we're going to, these are mathematical transformations. So the first one is a % change in spending between 2021 and 2020. So we're just going to call that, you can name it whatever you want. I'm going to name mine % change. And you may wonder, why don't I put any space in my names? That's a carryover from older versions of Excel and older other software programs that didn't let you have variables that had spaces in them. It saves space also, so I kind of keep doing it. But so this is where we're going to write what the specific definition. We're going to have the percent change in spending in 2021 versus 2020. All right. And then I'm going to let you fill in what the, if it's categorical, numerical, and the scale of measurement, and if numerical units, what format. So this is a percent change. So I will tell you, this is just a percent is what we would put as the units here. I'm going to center this. Okay. And then the next one is a natural log of income to make the values more normally distributed. So that's a little bit of a result of me looking at the income data. So I'm over now in the clean data. I'm selecting the whole column that's income. I'm going up to insert, and I'm going to go to the middle to the charts. That's the histogram. And when I look at this histogram, I see that I have a right skewed histogram where I'm having more of my, I don't have a normal distribution. For one thing, I have like this abnormally higher lumps here, and then I have this tail values here. So what I'm hoping when you see something that's not quite normal and we think it might be an essential part of our analysis is that we would like this to be more normally distributed. Hence, we're going to look at the natural log transformation of these income values. All right, so I'm going to delete this now because it was just to guide me to decide on making that variable. So going back to the variables, I'm going to call this LN income. And I'm just going to say this is the natural logarithm to be formal transformation. Maybe I should just say natural logarithm of income. I'll let you work out what that is. There are no units. Technically, you could say it's the log of dollars is the units, but that's generally, maybe we'll say NA, not applicable. And the next one is the age. So I'm going to say age. I'm just going to call it age. And I'm going to say age of customers on January 1st, 2022. Okay. And we know that the scale of measurement for that. All right, so then over here, we're going to come in and we're going to look at this binning request. So if you recall, Catherine Hill requested a RFM analysis. So we need to even understand what an RFM analysis is. Basically, you're going to get the quintiles of 3 variables. The R for recent. This is a marketing tool to find your best customers. And the idea is to find the best top 20% of your customers based on 3 criteria. R for recency, or how current are they, how recent have they been good customers. So we're going to use the days since last. And another characteristic for a good customer is the frequency. So how often are they shopping at our business? So we're going to use number of orders. And then also how much money are they spending? So we'll use and that stands for monetary. And so we're going to look at the spending in the last year in our data, which is spending 2021. So each of these characteristics are going to get divided into quintiles. And then what we'll do is we're going to use the quintiles for each one of these and concatenate together a new variable, which is the RFM category. So we're going to concatenate those 3 bins. And for example, we're going to give each quintile a number. So like 2 is you're in the 2nd quintile, 3 you're in the 3rd quintile. And then we're going to concatenate those numbers from the R, F, and M and together create a variable. So for example, a 111 is someone who's in the first quintile for days since last, number of orders, and spending, because they're in the first quintile for all three. Whereas someone who's a 123 is in the first quintile for days since last, the second quintile for number of orders, and the third quintile for spending. Once we go through this somewhat long process to create this RFM variable, then we'll delete all the parts that are the F and the M quintiles and just keep the RFM. And we can choose to keep the RF and M quintiles if we want in our one version of our data and not in the final analysis ready data set, because in the analysis ready data set, we generally don't include any variables that we don't feel are useful for the analysis, because if not, it kind of becomes too unwieldy, too wide. All right. We are also asked to bin income into 5 equal size bins. And we were also asked to provide a structure for a tiered membership based on 2021 spending. So I think for one of my sections, I gave some cutoffs, but I want to actually kind of roll that back a little and assume we don't know what to use. So we're going to determine the cutoffs of tiered membership based on the spending and assign customers as either being in a bronze category, silver category, or gold category. Okay, so as we go in here, let's go ahead and you're going to start converting this information over here to new variables. All right, so the first one is R, which I'm going to say R is the quintiles of days since last. And that is a categorical because it's going to be a bin name. And the values are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Okay, even though they're numbers, they're actually quintiles. Sorry. Even though they're numbers, to be actually, this is ordinal, isn't it? So they're categorical and with an ordinal scale of measurement. Okay. And then because every value, even the minimum, is going to be in one of these. So there's no real zero. So and we aren't going to be able to do any real math with these numbers. So that's part of the reason they're categorical and they are ordered. So we will say they're ordinal. You're going to do the same thing with the F and the M. All right, then we're going to get to RFM is going to be what we're going to create using that. And we're going to say this is the concatenation of R, F, and M. And I'll let you fill these out. The values are going to be 1, 1, 1, 1. And you can kind of go through this. 1, 1, 2, sorry, 1, 1, 3, etc. Okay. Dot, 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 till we get to 5, 5, 5. All right, so you don't have to write out every single one. All right, the next one down was binning income into 5 equal size bins. So let's say bin income. And we'll say this is the quintiles of income. I'm going to say that we pushed back and we had a meeting with Catherine and we actually decided that what we want is to we recommended that quartiles would be better for this. So we're going to switch this to quartiles. All right. So that's a change on my part because I'm the professor and I can do that. Normally you wouldn't be able to do that. We'd have to have a meeting with Catherine. So we're gonna do binning income into quartiles was requested. All right. So we're gonna say bin income and here we're gonna change this to quartiles. Then the next thing is we need a structure to provide a tiered membership that the categories are going to be bronze, silver, or gold. So this was one where we may need to come back later after we put in the values and actually tweak this definition to cover what we need it to be. But for right now, let's just call it membership maybe. And we're going to say this is membership based on membership category based on spending 2021. And again, this is categorical and it is ordered, so it is ordinal, and it's going to be bronze, silver, and gold. And then we're going to have a couple more things that we need to add. We're going to add the category reduction. So I'm going to let you keep going on filling out this table with the category reduction. And also the dummy or indicator variables for the variable sex and the variable channel. Once you have that whole table filled out, so you're going to need to have something in here for female. You're going to have some dummy indicator variables for channel. And we're going to use web as a reference, but I know TV is another one. Standard mailers, what the SM stands for. So standard mailer. And you're going to put more information here. Standard mailer, dummy variable. Okay. I'm getting you started. All right, so on. So you kind of, etc. You got to add them all in here. Once you have everything in here, probably the easiest thing to do is now go ahead and open up my analysis plan for task 2. And this is where I was saying the following variables will be added. I am actually going to download this out of Google Docs because I know that Word has a lot of functionality in this area. So I'm going to go up here to File, Download to Word. There are some things that are fine to do in Google Docs and other things that are a little bit better to do in Word. So now that I've done this, I'm going to open that version of that in Word, but I want to make sure when I upload it back, I don't have an issue. So I want to go back to that tab that I had opened in our class project worksheet. I'm just going to close these out. And so I'm just going to close these tabs and we're back at our drive in the analysis plan. We don't want to be there. We want to go to part 2, analysis plan, original work. So let's go here. And this is what we just downloaded. Okay. And this is the one actually that we downloaded with my name in it. As you can see right here, I'm going to enable editing. Let me slide this over. And this is where I want to put in this table. After I've completed my table, I'm going to take this additional data and I'm going to basically do the same thing we did when we did the variable definition. So I'm just going to copy this table into here. And then I'm going to play around with it so that it looks normal. All right, notice one thing, and you may say, oh man, I totally forgot a whole bunch of stuff that I prefer to do in Excel because I know how to do it in Excel. So let's just get rid of this. So maybe you want to format it a little. Maybe you want to add in, you know, the window pane stuff in here. Maybe you want to center things. You know, you can just center some of your stuff if you want. However you want to do this. Once you get it close to how you like it, you can just copy that over again, copy it in here. And then don't forget this little white box way over here on the right that's going to let us kind of manually resize our data. Notice that we are missing column headers. So we don't really know, looking at this table, what this means. So one of the things that we can do is select the top row and go in here to this. I get a pop-up, a little pop-up. And if it does not show up for you as a pop-up, you should be able to right-click, insert, come down and insert a rows above. So however many you selected is how many it's going to add. So I just added, selected one. And I'm just going to go scroll back up to my variable definitions file. And I'm going to copy this first row. So I'm going to copy this first row and bring this down. Oops. I think I might have to select this whole row. Oh, I did not like that. Okay, let's get it from over here. Didn't like that either. Oh, I know why. It actually did like it. It's just the font is white and I'm white on white here, aren't I? So let's change this font to black. Up above, we could have copied this. So we copy this. And we can come down, I believe, do this by right-clicking and going to paste options. And insert as new row is one way to do it. So, okay, we'll do that. That's easier, and we'll get rid of this. So I selected that, and I'm going to delete row. Then here I'm going to say, just because it's now in an analysis plan, which is a little more formal than the Excel. The Excel is an internal document. The analysis plan is client facing. So let's go ahead and merge the cells here. So I'm going to select the cells I want to merge. I'm going to come out here to layout, top to layout, and I'm going to click on merge cells here. So not how I wanted that to look. So let's play around with it. And we need to delete stuff that's in here. Yeah, oh, it was somehow adding space. So I deleted that. Okay, additional variables. So again, just to be a little bit specific, if someone only looks at the table and doesn't read the sentence right above, exactly what they're looking at here. Okay, now that I've done that, let's go back to that analysis plan template. And down below it said, enumerate and define any subsets that will be used for the analysis. So for this part, so that's remaining. So let's go back over to our analysis plan. And we want to go in here and we're going to say the following subsets of the analysis ready data set will be created. So the idea is that once we've completed adding in all these additional variables, we will have arrived at the analysis ready data set. We could actually add that up in here. We could say the following variables will be added to the clean data to arrive at the analysis ready data set. So one of the documents that I want to go back to is our instruction sheet. And we have this instruction sheet that is sort of notes from meetings in the real world, but they're really notes from me in our class. But in the real world, we would have had meetings, we would have discussed things, we would have, this is like where I would have kept my notes and I would have said, oh, okay, this is stuff that I got to remember. So it says start a new Excel workbook with the analysis ready data set, and we're going to call it ARDS full. And we're going to put the subsets there in the new worksheets. Okay, and so we're going to have the main one be the analysis ready data set. And then we're going to figure out the millennials, and then we're going to subset those into males and females. If you recall, I did tell you that sometimes the binning changes for depending on what you want to do. You may have to rebin. So keep that in mind. We may have to rebin some of these. But for right now, let's go ahead and enumerate what we're going to do for creating new subsets. And I'm going to go up here in Word and I'm going to select the numbers. Under paragraph, there's an option. There's bullets or numbers, and I'm just going to choose numbers because it seems to me like we'd like to know how many we end up with. So after the data has been cleaned and the new variables added, the data set to be used for analysis will be called the and let's just go ahead and put ARDS underscore full. And I'm going to come back here and say the analysis ready data. And I'll put that in quotes because that's a common term used in data analysis. For further analysis will be called ARDS full. So now we can refer to that. ARDS full will be subset to create the millennials subset as follows. Well, we have to understand what are millennials. So there's a couple different things we can do for that. We can go online and see how millennials are generally defined. We could also see what the Catherine Hill believes millennials should be. So that would not necessarily be a bad way to go here. So if we get our e-textbook and then go up here to the search, let's see if we can find anything in here to help us. Okay, so it's in data preparation. So it looks like there's some information. Let's go to the first one. So that search brought us here, and it looks like we're inside a box. And it's giving us some cutoff dates, but let's just like orient ourselves, make sure this is Catherine Hill and everything. I'm going to scroll up and see this is example 2.3, and it is talking about Catherine Hill. So she is talking about those who are born on January 1st, 1982, on or after, and then before January 1st, 2000. So that's what we're going to use to define our millennials. So let's go ahead and put that into our data. So we're going to say this will be customers who were born on or before, on or after, excuse me, January 1st, 1982, and before, I think it's covered up, but it was before January 1st, 2000. The following variables will be kept. Okay. Sex, household size, income, total spending in 2021. Now we could go in parentheses, maybe put what the variable names are, but I think it's all already been, there's a trail, if you will, if you want to know what the variable names are in the data up above. So I think it's okay to just put it like this. So it's easily, it can be easily read by anyone. The total number of orders in the past 24 months. And you don't have to capitalize every letter. I don't know why I'm doing that. The channel through which they were obtained. Once I started, I'm stuck right through which. So all right, those are the ones she's requested. Now we can come back later and possibly add things to here that we may feel help us understand the millennials. And then the third thing, so I'm just hitting return and it's kind of going back up the tree, as it were. That's how I went from, let me do that again. So here I am, I hit return and it gave me Roman numeral 7, but I actually don't want to add something at that level. So I hit return, it gives me a C, and I don't want something at that level either. So I hit return again and it gave me a 3. And that's the way Word kind of backsteps you up through the hierarchy if you create that kind of outlined format. All right, so the third thing is the millennials. Oh, we forgot to name it. The artful, the subsets create the millennials subset as follows. So we actually do need a C, don't we? This data, this subset will be called millennials. Mills, how about Mills? I think that's a nice name. All right. The Mills subset, this Mills data set will be further subset into by sex into males, the male subset of Mills will be called, I'm going to just say Mills M, and then the female subset of Mills. See how you have to go through all this detail? Like you have to think about like every single step needs to be documented in the analysis plan. And it's kind of a discipline in your planning. It forces you to really think through what you're doing ahead of time and can prevent, I know it seems like a lot of time goes into this, but it prevents a lot of rework. Okay, so the female subset of Mills will be called, and I'm gonna say Mills with then a capital F. Okay, I think that's pretty easy and self-explanatory. Again, you could have maybe chosen something slightly different. It doesn't make it wrong. Okay, so that is the end of the part 2. There's some parts here that you need to do, but I wanted to kind of give you a lot of this since it's due tonight.